The red desert planet of Karth 7 had been dead for years. Old mining towers stood like broken skeletons beneath the dark sky. Rusted machines rested under thick layers of dust. Cold wind moved through empty streets, creating strange sounds between the ruined buildings. Nobody lived there anymore. At least that was what Ethan Vale believed. The human cargo pilot walked slowly across the abandoned outpost with a small flashlight in one hand and a scanner in the other. His gray jacket moved in the strong wind as sand hit his boots. His ship, Solar Drift, waited outside the ruined gate. Ethan only came to Karth 7 for one reason: fuel cells, nothing more. He planned to collect old machine parts, spend one quiet night, then leave before sunrise. But the galaxy rarely allowed quiet nights. As Ethan entered the center of the outpost, his scanner suddenly made a soft beep. A weak signal. Very weak. He frowned and checked the screen. No life signs, no movement, only static. Then a small voice whispered through his comm device. "Human! Can you hear me?" Ethan instantly stopped walking. The voice sounded young, a child. He slowly looked around the empty ruins. Who said that? For a moment, only the wind answered him. Then the voice returned, quieter this time. "Please don't leave." Ethan's heartbeat became faster. Nobody used emergency comm channels anymore, especially not on dead planets. "Where are you?" he asked carefully. "My name is Lumi," the voice replied. "I saw your ship land." Ethan tightened his grip on the scanner. Something felt wrong, or maybe dangerous. But the fear in the child's voice sounded real. "My mother is hurt," Lumi whispered. "Please help us." Ethan closed his eyes for 1 second. He had spent most of his life avoiding trouble. Trouble usually came with weapons, soldiers, or deaths, but this sounded different. This sounded desperate. "Stay where you are," he said. "I'm coming." The signal led him deeper into the ruined outpost. Broken walls surrounded him. Old cables hung from the ceiling like dead vines. Dust covered everything. Finally, Ethan reached a collapsed communication tower near the edge of the station. The signal became stronger. He pushed aside a damaged metal panel and froze. 2 glowing silver eyes stared back at him from the darkness. A small alien girl slowly stepped forward. She looked about 8 years old. Her pale blue skin was covered in dirt and dust. Torn cloth wrapped around her small body, and her silver hair fell messily across her face. But her eyes held something Ethan did not expect: hope. "You came," she whispered softly. Ethan lowered himself carefully to one knee. "You're Lumi?" She nodded quickly. Relief filled her tiny face. "I told Mama a human would help us." Before Ethan could answer, Lumi grabbed his hand. Her fingers were cold and shaking. "Please," she begged. "She's getting weaker." Lumi pulled him toward a hidden underground shelter beneath the tower. Inside, the room was dark except for one weak lantern. And lying on a thin blanket near the wall was an alien woman covered in blood. Her breathing was slow, painful. The moment Ethan stepped closer, the woman suddenly opened her glowing eyes. Fear and anger filled them instantly. "Stay away from my daughter," she whispered weakly, but Lumi held tightly onto Ethan's arm, and with tears forming in her eyes, the little girl said the words that completely stunned him. "Please marry my mother, human. You're the only hope we have left." The underground shelter became completely silent after Lumi's words. Even the wind outside seemed to stop for a moment. Ethan Vale stared at the little alien girl beside him, unsure if he heard her correctly. Lumi looked completely serious. Her small silver eyes were full of hope, not embarrassment. Behind her, the injured alien woman slowly pushed herself up against the wall, despite the pain burning through her body. "Lumi," she whispered weakly, "do not say things like that." "But Mama," Lumi replied softly, "he stayed." The child looked back at Ethan. Most people run away when they see us. Ethan did not know what to say. He had fought pirates. He had survived wars. He had escaped hungry planets and dangerous people, but nothing had prepared him for this conversation. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I think your daughter makes decisions very fast," he said carefully. For the first time, the alien mother almost smiled. Almost. "My daughter trusts too easily," she answered. Lumi crossed her arms. "No, I trust good people." The weak lantern above them flickered again. Ethan finally stepped closer and knelt beside the injured woman. Up close, he could see how bad the wound really was. Dark blue blood covered the side of her torn clothing. Old scars marked her arms and neck like memories she could never escape. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. The woman hesitated for a moment. "Lyra." Ethan opened his small medical kit. "Well, Lyra, if you keep bleeding like this, your daughter will blame me." Lumi nodded seriously. "I will." That finally made Ethan laugh quietly. As he cleaned the wound, Lyra watched him carefully. Every movement, every breath, like she expected betrayal at any second. "You're human," she said softly. Ethan glanced at her. "Last time I checked." Her expression remained cold. "Humans helped destroy my world." The room became heavy with silence. Ethan did not argue. He simply continued wrapping the bandage around her side. After a moment, he answered quietly. "Then humans failed your people." Lyra looked surprised by the response. Most humans became angry when blamed for old wars. But Ethan's voice carried no pride, only tired honesty. Lumi sat beside him, watching carefully. "You're different," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Different usually means trouble." Outside, thunder rolled across the dead planet. The storm was getting closer. Suddenly, the old motion scanner near the doorway flashed red, once, then again. Ethan's smile disappeared instantly. Movement outside. 3 signals. Lyra grabbed Lumi and pulled her close. Fear returned to her glowing eyes. "No," she whispered. Ethan stood slowly and checked the scanner himself. 3 armed figures moving between the ruins, heading directly toward the shelter. "How long have they been hunting you?" he asked quietly. Lyra's voice shook slightly. "Since the day Lumi was born." The child lowered her head sadly. "They always find us." Ethan looked toward the broken doorway leading outside. The storm winds screamed louder now. Dust filled the air like smoke. The hunters were close, very close. Lyra slowly reached for a curved metal blade hidden beside the bed. "You should leave now," she warned him. "This is not your fight." Ethan checked the charge on his old plasma pistol. Only 4 shots left. Bad odds. But then he looked down at Lumi. The little girl was trembling. Not for herself. For her mother. And somehow that made his decision easy. Ethan locked the shelter door and turned back toward them. His voice became calm, cold, protective. "Anybody chasing a scared child through a storm," he said, "just made this my fight." The first explosion shook the underground shelter like an earthquake. Dust rained from the ceiling. Lumi screamed and covered her ears while Lyra instantly pulled her behind the old metal bed. Outside, heavy boots moved across the ruins above them. The hunters had arrived. Ethan stood near the doorway with his plasma pistol raised. His heart pounded hard, but his hands stayed steady. A rough voice echoed through the storm outside. "Lyra Voss," the man shouted. "Surrender the child peacefully and nobody else gets hurt." Lumi buried her face against her mother. Lyra closed her glowing eyes for one painful second. "They found us faster than before," she whispered. Ethan looked toward her. Who are these people? Lyra's expression darkened. Collectors. The word alone sounded poisonous. She tightened her grip on the curved blade in her hand. They take children born with rare bloodlines. They sell them to laboratories, armies, rich colonies, anyone willing to pay. Ethan felt cold anger rise inside him. He looked at little Lumi. She was just a child, small, frightened, innocent. Yet somewhere outside, armed men were hunting her like property. The voice outside returned. You have 10 seconds. Ethan checked the weak shelter walls. They would never survive a direct attack. Then suddenly, Lumi slowly walked toward him. Her tiny hands shook as she held onto his jacket. Please don't let them take Mama, she whispered. She's all I have left. Something inside Ethan broke at those words. He had spent years alone, moving from planet to planet with nobody waiting for him anywhere. No family, no home, no reason to stay anywhere, but this little girl looked at him like he mattered, like he was hope. And for the first time in many years, Ethan wanted to be worthy of that hope.
Don't move.
The countdown outside ended.
Over, Ethan.
A massive blast destroyed part of the shelter entrance. Smoke and sparks exploded into the room. 2 armored hunters pushed through the broken doorway with weapons raised. Everything happened instantly. Ethan fired first. Blue plasma lit the dark room. One attacker crashed into the wall. The second hunter aimed toward Lumi, but Lyra moved faster. Despite her injuries, she leapt forward with terrifying speed. Her curved blade sliced across the hunter's armor, throwing sparks everywhere. The man screamed and fell backward. Outside, more footsteps approached. Too many. Ethan grabbed Lumi quickly. We need to move now. Lyra pointed toward a hidden tunnel behind the shelter. It leads to the old landing platforms. They ran through the narrow tunnel while explosions echoed behind them. The walls shook violently. Dust filled the air. Lumi held tightly onto Ethan's hand the entire time. Finally, they reached the surface near the ruined landing zone where Ethan's ship waited beneath the storm. But as they reached the ramp, another hunter stepped from, the shadows holding a rifle. Game over, he growled. Lumi froze in fear. Lyra stepped in front of her daughter instantly, despite barely being able to stand. Then, Ethan slowly moved beside them. Not behind them, beside them. His voice became calm and deadly serious. No, he said, you picked the wrong family. Before the hunter could react, Ethan fired. Silence returned. Only the storm remained. Minutes later, the ship lifted into the dark sky. Inside the cockpit, Lumi sat quietly beside Ethan while Lyra rested against the wall. The little girl looked up at him carefully.
We're cutting it close. The engines
So,
are fully engaged.
she whispered.
Get inside.
Does saving us mean you'll stay now? Ethan looked at the stars ahead of them, then back at the lonely child smiling beside him. For the first time in years, the future did not feel empty anymore. And somewhere deep inside, he already knew the answer.